Hey Insomniacs, welcome back. How are you, my friends? I hope you're doing well on this Tuesday afternoon. It's been a crazy couple days around here, and I apologize for not getting any videos posted, but it's just been a little bit nuts. We had that huge snowstorm here in upstate New York. My car got stuck. I had lost my reading glasses. Then I had to help my mom out with some stuff yesterday. So the Godzilla theme week that I thought I was going to do this week, unfortunately, looks like it's going to go by the wayside. I am really excited to see Godzilla Kong New Empire this weekend. And I do want to do a Godzilla week. It's just probably maybe we'll wait till things slow down a little bit. But we are going to talk about Godzilla this week. And I do have some other stuff to talk about. I'm going to show you this. We're not going to get to it right now, but I do want to show it to you. Stuff. I got stuff in the mail. But we're not going to talk about that today. I think we'll start talking about them tomorrow because I want to talk about some of the stuff we're going to do here on the weekends. I did that first Talking Tunes, talking about the golden age of Saturday morning cartoons, and it really hasn't really generated much on the channel. It's just kind of out there. So we might, I'm thinking about tabling that for now, and we'll come back to that, at some point when I can do it a little better the way that I want to do it. So what are we going to do on the weekends? Well, Saturday morning cartoons weren't the only huge thing that I enjoyed. There was this little show. It wasn't really a show. It was kind of programming called Creature Double Feature. And it was out of a station. Somehow, I still don't understand how this cut in. Maybe somebody out there can help me. But WLVI, channel 56 out of Boston, cut into our local programming in Guilderland, New York, and presented this 2-hour block every Saturday. I don't know how it happened. I really don't. And I've tried to find an answer, and maybe there's some smarter people out there who can help me. Anyway, so what was Creature Double Feature? Creature Double Feature was a program that ran from 1 p.m. to 4 p.m. every Saturday from 1975 up through 1984. And I think they started showing them up here. Probably I was more 77, 78, maybe 79. Guessing when I kind of found Godzilla and all that kind of stuff. And they showed the Universal stuff. They showed Toho stuff. They showed the Gamera movies. They showed the Hammer stuff. Did I say Hammer? And just a lot of the other 50s, 60s, and a touch of 70s horror and sci-fi, with it being a double feature. So they'd take a couple movies, and if it had something common in the title, they would, throw them together. Something like King of the Zombies and Revenge of the Zombies. Or you'd get Godzilla's Destroy All Monsters and Gamera's Destroy All Planets. Frankenstein Conquers the World and Dracula versus Frankenstein. All that kind of stuff that they would put together, and it opened up this whole world, and it became that was my fandom originally. Right around the same time as Star Wars and Kiss. This all kind of melded together at creating what I still love to this day. I pinpointed all back to around 76. 1976 was a huge year. I discovered Kiss. Star Wars was on the horizon, and monster movies, I think, were just starting to enter my outer space area around my head. And I watched it up until they didn't air them anymore around here. And I would get mad if we had plans where we had to go out on a Saturday, because I didn't want to miss like the Incredible Shrinking Man or the Deadly Mantis, and it was half of the Godzilla films from the Showa era were there, and the rest of them came on Fridays after Thanksgiving on WOR, which we'll talk about all that when we get closer to Thanksgiving. But it was just awesome, and there was the Hammer films. I couldn't get enough of Christopher Lee and Peter Cushing, and there was this really bright red blood, and it was obviously not. It didn't look like blood. It was so, the colors just were so vibrant, and it was so not it was so the opposite of the Universal stuff. But then the Universal stuff had some great atmosphere. There's nothing like the atmosphere of the original Frankenstein, or some of the early Bela Lugosi stuff. There's just it was Saturdays couldn't be any better. There was cartoons, and then Soul Train was on at noon, and then 1 o'clock you were into Creature Double Feature, and the whole afternoon was sat watching these great movies. So I started them this weekend. There's a great website out there, Kevin, a gentleman by the name of Kevin Bowes. He has a website, kevinbowes.com. Maybe I'll put the link in the notes for this. And you can go back and go by year and look at all of the Creature Double Features that aired for those weeks. And I watched the very first pairing this past weekend, and it was Voyage to a Prehistoric Planet and Voyage to the Planet of Prehistoric Women. Now, these are both movies that Roger Corman got his hands on in the 60s. I think they both came out around 68. And it was one Soviet sci-fi film, and he broke them up into two movies. The plots are very similar. There's some overlap footage in them, but it's the same Russian actors in both films, telling two completely kind of connected stories. I to this day, I still don't know, and maybe Roger Corman probably doesn't know either. About some astronauts that are going to a space station, and the space station gets destroyed, and they continue on to Venus, maybe. I don't even remember what planet they're going to. And they touch down on this planet. And in the first one, it's just these monsters are all over the place. And in the second one, it focuses a lot more on the girls that live on this prehistoric planet. And there's a robot, and there's flying dinosaurs. And it's really, some of the first one has a really good story. And I never really, I watched it and I was like, yeah. It only aired once on Creature Double Feature. We are going to see some movies that appear 3 or 4 times, and I'm going to watch them each time because I feel it is my duty as Creature Double Feature watch through to, even if the movies appear again, you got to watch them again, because that's what we did. We did that on Saturday afternoons, and we did that on Saturday nights too, which I'll talk about in just a second. But we watched them week after week, and we didn't get tired of them, and we didn't get sick of them, and we absolutely loved them. And I think that's why to this day I can watch movies over and over and over again, because the programming was the same movies over and over again, and I ate it up. I just ate all of it up. So those two are okay. I would probably watch Voyage to the Prehistoric Planet over Voyage to the Planet of Prehistoric Women. And if you want to play along this Saturday, I won't I'm not going to air me watching the movies because I don't want to get copyright infringements. But Revenge of the Zombies and King of the Zombies are going to be the two movies for this weekend for that. So I'm going to watch them, and we'll talk about them probably on Sunday. I'll post a video about them. So I hope you join me for that. So that brings me to Saturday nights. Now, growing up, I don't remember a lot of evening horror movies, not till I got into my rental days. But there was a time or two when we would get the TV Guide, and I used to mark the whole thing up every week with everything I wanted to watch. There was a time where on the weekend I would flip through, and if there was a Godzilla movie on or something that was way past my bedtime, because my bedtime back then was like 9, maybe 10, but more 9. If there was something on at let's talk about Chiller Theater. Chiller Theater was on WPIX out of Albany, and once we got cable, we got WPIX, so we had access to Chiller. And Chiller started with a 6-fingered hand coming out of the ground and ripping up the Chiller words in like a claymation way. and then you would get a great horror movie, and then they went to a double feature format where they would play one at like 8 and then another one at 11:30 original. That was the original hours, but they fluctuated through the run of it, and sometimes they were later, like 1 in the morning. And WOR, another great station out of New Jersey, which we got with cable, also had Fright Night, and that also was, all this stuff was on at the same time. It was like a golden age of monster movies on cable. And Fright Night was on much later. That was probably didn't start till like 1 in the morning. So that might have been where this was. But anyway, I remember being a kid and going through the TV guide, and Gorgo was going to be on, which is this awesome dinosaur movie made by England and, God, my mind is blanking on the other country that was involved in it. Anyway, about a giant dinosaur movie, kind of like a Godzilla ripoff, but it's good. It was one of those impressionable movies of my childhood, so I love that one. And I remember seeing it in the TV guide probably 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning, and we had this old alarm clock. It was this old green and yellow alarm clock that you had to wind up in the back. I can still hear it in my head, and I know my mom watches these videos, so she's probably laughing, and she probably remembers it too. And they let me set the alarm for like 1 or like close to 1 or 2, whenever it was going to be on. And I would get up after going to bed at like 9. I would get up at 1 and shuffle out into the living room. We lived in an apartment complex, so everything was, on one floor. And I would shuffle out through the shag carpet and get on our nice, either leathery couch, or it had some kind of pattern on it. And I would watch Gorgo, or I would attempt to watch Gorgo, but most likely I would watch a little of Gorgo and fall asleep. And my parents didn't care, because they knew that I was still going to be asleep. I was still going to sleep. It'd just be out on the couch now. And it was the weekend. So that was, and I remember the excitement of getting up to watch something. And I did that a few times. And I remember when MTV debuted like a new Kiss video, Heaven's on Fire, in '84. I remember doing it then, and just that excitement, and that excitement is still there. And I want to do that sometime. I want to just go to bed early and set the alarm and get up and watch a late night horror movie, because that's what we did. My wife and I have done that a few times when neither of us could sleep. We're like, you want to watch a movie? And she's like, yeah. So we would find in later years, we would have Wolfman Max Chiller Theater was on in our area. We could get it through the cable, and there was another one, and I'm drawing a blank on that one too, the Beatnik one. My wife is yelling at the video now because she knows exactly which one I'm talking about. So, and we would watch, like Faster Pussycat Kill, and there's all kinds of like late night stuff with that too. So that was my later viewing, and now I do creature features. But so I am rewatching the creature double features during the day on Saturdays, and at night. This is all when I can. Obviously, I have a almost 13-year-old, and she's getting ready to start her theater stuff up again. So I'm going to be busy with that. But I'm going to try to do this stuff in between, because I love this stuff, and I love talking to you about it. Look at us, I'm so excited. So Creature Double Feature, we're doing those on Saturday afternoons. And then at night, I'm starting the Chiller Theaters and the Fright Nights. And I'm starting those later. Not quite 11 or 1, because I don't know if I can stay up that late. So I'm starting them probably around 9, and I'm doing them back to back instead of 11 and 1. It's probably more like 9 and 11. I'd love to do a really, really late night, but I did start it last weekend to give it to get back into it, because I was so excited to start it, and I wanted to talk to you about it this weekend, but I couldn't get back on the channel. And I watched. What did I watch? For Chiller Theater, I watched, my mind is totally blanking. What did I watch? It was, well, I know for Fright Night, I watched Decoy for Terror, aka the Playgirl Killers, and this was boring, steaming pile of just badness. Just don't waste your time with it because it just wasn't good. And for the other one, I'm going to pause this for a minute and see if I can remember what it was. It was The Screaming Skull. I don't know why I couldn't think of that. And that's one of my favorite movies. It's from the late 50s, early 60s, and it's a fun film about a couple who are newly married, and she's his second wife, and they're living in the house that they're moving into the house that the wife supposedly went crazy in and died, and it's haunted by her supposedly, and things go from creepy to just absolute bonkers by the end of the movie, and it's really fun, and it's in the public domain, so you can find it pretty easy, and it's a lot of fun, and that'd be it was a great movie to start the chiller watches off. I always like to imagine myself as a little kid, late at night, getting down with a blanket and some good popcorn or something, and trying to imagine what it was like watching them back in those days. I'd love to have like an old 70s TV to watch this stuff on, because that would just be so much fun. But I like my big screen too. So Chiller Theater started in 1971, and I think that went up to like 1982. And Fright Night started somewhere around in there as well. They kind of went together in the time frame. So that's all the stuff that I watched this weekend for those shows. And this weekend for Creature Double Feature, we have Revenge of the Zombies and King of the Zombies. For Chiller Theater, we are watching a Toho classic, Mothra. I can't wait. And for Fright Night, it's Brides of Blood, which I haven't seen before. So, and I believe that was another cheapie out of the Philippines, maybe, in the 60s. So that's going to be interesting. And I might throw, since there was only, they weren't on double features yet for Chiller, I might throw something from USA Saturday Nightmares, something a little more 80s. But that's all I have to say. I know I've kind of rambled a lot this evening, but Chiller, Creature Double Feature, they are two of my absolute favorite things. It kind of completes the weekend with creature features on Friday nights. I love spending my weekend watching monster movies. My wife likes watching them to a point, so I'm trying to do some non-horror stuff before I get to the horror stuff. I do love comedies, and I do love dramas. I love movies. I just love movies, and I love talking to them about you. And we're going to talk about a lot of stuff, a lot of movies on here. Tomorrow we are going to start some of the eBay stuff that I got. And for you wrestling fans, I thank you for hanging in there, because we haven't gotten back to wrestling since we talked about it last week. So tomorrow, I think the first eBay thing I'm going to show you is the beginning of a collection that I'm really excited about. And it is definitely my generation of wrestling. So I'll see you back here tomorrow for another video. You have a good rest of your Tuesday night, and thank you for hanging out for a little while and letting me just talk your ear off. I really do appreciate you coming and watching these videos and hanging around. And do you remember any of these shows? What are your monster memories if you were a monster movie fan? What do you remember seeing on TV when you were a kid? Did you watch Creature Double Feature? Did you watch Chiller? Do you remember Fright Night? Do you remember any of them? Or what was in your area that you watched? Did you have a horror host that you remember? And I'd love to talk about horror hosts, and we'll talk about them at some point too. So please, if you haven't subscribed, please do, because I don't like asking people to subscribe, but I would hope that you would if you enjoy this content, because then there's more of you for me to talk to, and that means a lot to me. So have a good night. Watch the skies. Watch for giant monster feet coming down on you, because Godzilla is not too far off. Have a good night, everybody.